Welcome to Generations, a show which helps people 50 and better lead happy, healthy, and productive lives. Here's today's moderator, Ed Noreen.
Hi, my name is Ed Noreen, and you are watching Generations. These are my co-hosts who will introduce themselves, and they're incredibly fun. Nadia, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Nadia Jordana, and Ed, I'm delighted to be your sidekick here today.
And my name is Jeff DeZeller. Ed, I'm very excited to hear what our guest has to say and looking forward to it.
And I'm Midge Bubani, and I'm delighted to be here today.
Midge has a new book out, too.
Thank you, Ed.
And our star, I'm so excited. This is the Amazing Hondo. He's a magician. And welcome to our show.
Great to be here. Thank you very much.
How did you begin as a magician? What got you interested in magic?
So I was in high school. I think my junior year, and I was at a poker party with my buddies. And one kid did a card trick, and I was fascinated. And I thought, well, how do you do that? And he wouldn't tell me. Eventually, he told me the book he read, and I went and found the book, and I just read it. I read a book on card tricks, and I practiced every night after I did my school homework. I would learn one magic card trick a night, and then I'd try it out on my classmates at school the next day, and that's how I began.
Wow.
I was about 17. I was a late bloomer. You know, a lot of kids get into it when they're really little, and one thing I learned is that most of the things you get into when you're really little, it kind of is a phase. But I started this late enough where it wasn't a phase. I was really shy, actually, when I was young, and this gave me an avenue for engaging with other people because it was a unique way you could introduce yourself, if you will.
When did you do your first show, and what was it like?
Well, my first real show was for 3M, and it was at a summer divisional picnic at Tartan Park, and it was for a medical surgical products division, and I remember I got paid $40, and I thought, oh, this is really, really good. And this is back in like 75, I think, and so that's the first one I remember. I had done a few little, party things, but that was my first, real show.
And
Was
how
that,
old? Oh,
was
sorry.
that while you were in your career as in teaching? I understand it was teaching. Was that during that time, or was that before? Or
I'm pretty sure it was the summer between my senior year in college and my first year teaching at St. Paul Cretin High School.
And then how long did you teach?
Not 9 years.
Okay.
Math.
Math.
You good at math?
No.
No, you said something that was really interesting, that you would perform tricks to get your students to wake up and pay attention. And I'm a former teacher. I thought that was just great.
Well, let me tell you who inspired me growing up. So I grew up with a classic 50s and 60s family, where your dad went to work, you didn't have a whole lot of engagement. But one thing our family used to do, we'd sit and watch Johnny Carson.
Yes.
I was allowed to stay up till Johnny was done. So I watched him almost every night, and I said, this is a cool guy. What a cool job. And that manner in which he engaged his audience and how he had fun with people without being offensive, I thought, this is a real balancing act. And so when I was teaching at Cretin, I thought, well, I'm going to do my Johnny Carson. So at the beginning of every class, I would do a 3 or 4 minute monologue, occasionally a magic trick, sometimes a joke, sometimes a current event that I observed, just to get the kids with you. And I always wanted to not be predictable, because predictability, I think, can produce, lethargy and boredom. So
Did that seem to work with the students?
it did. In fact, they all got to a point where if I didn't do it, or if I didn't do it long enough, I would get a feedback saying, hey, you're slipping. And so I would, they kept me in check. And in a way, that was my training ground for what later became what now is my full-time profession, which I often say I would never be doing this had I not been a teacher. Because
how did that transition take place? Did that take a period of years, or?
Well, good question. I actually, Nadia, for 3 years or so, I was toying with this idea, and I never had the courage to pull the lever. But in my 9th year teaching, I got invited to give a talk in San Francisco by the National Council of Mathematics Teachers at their national convention on the topic of mathemagic. So I developed mathematically based magic tricks that I performed, and then I had a handout so the attendees, who were teachers, could go back to their schools and do these tricks, okay? I never made a book out of it. I maybe should. But I got up in front of that audience, and I was nervous, but I pulled it off, and I was like 32 at the time, I think, and 31 maybe, and I just remember sitting on the plane flying home and going, yeah, I can see myself on stages doing this, traveling. That was when I said, I know I can do it. And so that was the seed, I think.
What was your first job as a magician, a retired teacher and magician? What was do you remember your first?
Well, the one that I remember of consequence was Thomson Reuters used to be called West Publishing.
Yes,
And they were a law book lawyer research company. They had a trade show at the American Bar Association in Washington, D.C. called the ABA Convention. They called on me. They had a theme of magic, discover the magic of Westlaw. I was very raw, and I went in, they booked me, I put a whole thing together, went out there. I still have pictures and stuff from that function, and that was my first one of consequence, and it really went well, and I thought, this is a good thing I'm doing here.
I'm really fascinated with math. I always have been, and how it ties into music and to the natural environment and to the human body. And would you say there's a correlation with magic and mathematics?
Well, two ways, two answers to that. One is from a standpoint of learning. Learning magic and learning math are very similar. They're sequential, they're logical, and if you don't get this part, you can't do this part. And so you have to learn in sequence your fundamentals. So from a learning standpoint, there's a lot of overlap. Now, from a performance standpoint, well, principles of math exist in a number of card tricks, exist in, a fair amount of this work we do, but certainly not all of it. But the learning process, I think, has the greatest, like, for example, may I?
Yes, please.
When I left teaching, the first decision I had to make, can I make a living at this? And how am I going to get work? Because you got to get gigs. And, we've all been in that arena, or many of us. If you're not working, you got to get work. So I went out, and I went into little companies. I'd knock on a door, and I would just go up to the receptionist, and I'd say, can I show you something? And I would do that.
Okay, do that again, because I didn't see that.
Oh.
And, and I'm sitting here myself, and one of the rules I have is I won't do a trick for anybody unless I can fool myself. So if I can fool myself, then I know I can. Now,
Okay,
you're
that's
sitting right here. Let me
good.
see your hand, Midge. Let's try something.
Attention.
All right. Now, people say, all right, you're the guy doing it. Can you do the magic in my hand? Let's try it. Squeeze tight. You got a good grip? All right. Now, I'm not going to touch you from this point forward, but I am going to ask you a question. Do you believe in the power of magnetism and, good, as it just happened?
No. I do not know how you did
I
that.
think her detective in her books is now going to be practicing magic.
Yeah.
So that trick has opened a lot of doors, and it's basically become my signature trick. It's on my business card. I'm holding a red ball hovering over my hand, and I bring them with me wherever I go. I've got different colors for different occasions, green ones for St. Patrick's Day parties. I've got some that I turned into golf balls for golf tournaments. I've got, well, let me show you one more here. All right. Let's try this with Ed. Ed, can you open your hand once?
Oh, sure.
I'm going to give you the two orange ones here. Squeeze tight.
Yep.
All right. Now, this is a basketball, so I do a lot. I'm a sort of a, I played ball, and I still play, and so I've done shows for the Timberwolves and other NBA teams, the Chicago Bulls and Phoenix Suns, and so when I do this for the players, I say, very important teamwork, and you got to be willing to pass the ball. But hopefully you can catch it when I pass it, Ed.
I'm dysfunctional. I may have missed it, but oh my goodness! Oh my goodness!
So aren't we having a ball here today?
Yes, we are. You're good.
Don't you?
You're really good.
Trying to catch you, and we can't.
Well,
Now,
thanks.
I've watched his website. His website is quite interesting. Can you show us how you do that?
That one, not really, because it's too much a part of my
No, I understand.
professional repertoire
I
that we we do have a code of ethics that we don't give away the secret, but I break that rule occasionally because I get asked that question. So I've come up with a couple fun little things that I teach that don't break the bank or don't cause other magicians to want to, make me disappear. like there was a guy a number of years ago on TV, the Masked Magician, and he was revealing all of the magician's illusion, like the woman in half trick and various.
That show.
He didn't last very long once they found out who he was. They made him disappear.
Honor among thieves and honor among magicians.
Exactly.
Well, you did this as a teacher, and also you do this in your corporate work, is when you stimulate interest, studies have been, people will learn when they're interested and like something.
Right.
So much of our education, we throw information at them in a way that never interests them. Can you share some of your favorite jobs?
My favorite what?
Jobs.
Sure, but I want to just say something about what you just said. I believe, and think back to when you were a student. What is it that inspires you to listen to your teacher? The teacher should be interesting, should be engaging, should be fun, and you should get the sense that they care about you. And I did all of those things. And to this day, the thing that I despise more than anything from a standpoint of public speaking is listening to speakers who either aren't interesting, don't have a story to tell, and aren't delivering it very well. And you just kind of, if you as an audience have to work to pay attention to the speaker, not an ideal situation. So what I've always tried to do is make my presentation engaging and compelling and relative to the audience I have. So before every performance, I spend hours researching them and their company. And so when I walk in there, I know them as pretty well, and so that helps a lot. So examples, one that comes to mind.
Can I also interrupt for a
go
second? Magic with a message.
That's
You
my
promote that,
tagline,
and it's
magic with a
beautiful,
message.
Really
yeah.
beautiful.
And people say, what's the message? And then I say, well, it varies. It depends on the performance, and I tailor each performance to that group. So that's my unique selling proposition. And I have friends in the business, entertainment business, who go the exact opposite, and it works for them. And what I mean by that is they know to the minute how long their performance is. They know, because it's the same every time, and the words are the same. So they have an act, and it works for them to just do their act, and they've got it down. Personally, because I bore easily, I need the stimulation of creativity and relevance, and so I always decided I wanted to use the magic to tie into the client's situation, whatever that may be. I'll give you one quick example. I got a call. This was in 1988. I had been doing a few pro golf tournaments, and I got a call from the Nabisco Food Company, and they were doing a convention in Maui, and they wanted, and I thought, Maui, ooh. Yeah. So they wanted to see if I'd come and be their guy. And so, without getting into specifics, we got into the question of, they said, well, what's your fee? And I thought, what do I say? This is the biggest event I've ever been asked about. If I say what my fee would be to do the church basement, they're not going to hire me because they're expecting to pay more. So I learned the psychology of selling is the fee should be matched to the perceived value and the budget. So I don't have a price tag. I vary everything. I customize everything. But how do you know what to quote? The question. I said, may I ask, is this something you've done before for which you've used other people, or is this the first time you're bringing someone like me in? And they said, no, we do this annually. I said, if you don't mind me asking, who have you used in the past whose role I'm filling here? Because I want to learn from the answer. And you know what they said? They said, Arnold Palmer. They started naming all these famous people, Pat Summerall, who was an announcer back then. And I thought, first of all, I got kind of scared because I thought, I don't know if I can fill those shoes. But at least it gave me a sense of, well, I'm not going to scare them with a quote if the quote is less than what those other guys charged. So I went with the highest quote I've ever done, and they said yes. So that's how I learned that you don't know if you're going to get something unless you ask for it. And then, of course, you got to deliver. And so you always ask when you're done. I said, well, what'd you think? How'd it go over? Oh, they loved it, blah, blah, blah. So you always want to hear that.
So do you feel like the magic with a message has helped separate you from other magicians? There must be hundreds of people out kind of on the circuit. Does this give you an edge, do you think?
About 3 years into my full-time Hondohood after teaching, I heard about a local organization. I was reading the business page in the Pioneer Press or Star Tribune, and it talked about a meeting of a group called the Minnesota Speakers Association. I said, well, this is interesting. They were meeting out at the airport. I went out there cold and met a few folks, and I got hooked, and I joined them and became a member of their chapter of the National Speakers Association. One of the things I learned early on was, rather than being a magician, I booked myself as a speaker who uses magic to communicate the message. So that was perfect. And so there's a handful of guys like me in the country who do magic and do integrating of messages for corporate events and so on, conventions, but not a lot. It's probably way under 1% of the people who would be doing this.
Now, you worked with Muhammad Ali.
I did.
What was he like?
Well, I got a phone call from a local author named Harvey Mackay. Harvey Mackay had just written a book called, that he featured a chapter in there on Muhammad Ali. So he brought Muhammad Ali in for his book signing because he wanted him to have the people get a chance to get a picture with him and get an autograph. Well, they had a 5-hour window of time that day between noon and 5 p.m. where they needed to keep Muhammad engaged. They knew he liked magic. So I get a call from the author, and he says, Harvey says, can you come over here and entertain Muhammad Ali for 5 hours, and then I'll hire you to entertain the line at my book signing? I said, sure. Never been more nervous in my life. This is Muhammad Ali. So he loved the magic. He was great to me. In fact, one time he was watching me do my tricks, and he says, you think you're amazing? He says, I make a comeback. I said, what? He goes, I'm come out of retirement. I said, yeah, who are you going to fight first? He goes, you. Oh, my goodness, my heart started to race. But being a Johnny Carson-like comeback, I just said, well, how do you think I'll do against you, champ? And he goes, with all your jive, I'd take you in 5. So I got a poem from Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, he was very clever.
Saw him the last time, same person, Harvey Mackay, had a Super Bowl party in his house in Scottsdale, Arizona, and he said, Muhammad's going to be there. He loves you. Can I have you come and be our halftime show? So I get brought into this guy's big house on Camelback Mountain, and I'm the halftime show. But I was a little nervous because the real halftime show was Prince, and he was starting his deal. And I said to everybody gathered, I said, I feel a little sheepish. You really want to watch me, Prince, to perform? Now, most of them, the average age of this party was over 70. So they said, we don't want to watch Prince. Let's show us some magic. So they turned the TV off. I put on my show. Muhammad's in the front row just going like this the whole time. And whenever I fooled him, he'd give me one of these things. So then the next day, and I'll end the story, the next day I get a call from Harvey in the morning. He says, Muhammad has requested you to come over to the house. He wants to learn a card trick. So we went over to his house, and I have a picture of me on a little video clip. He's sitting in his recliner, and I'm there, and I'm just showing Muhammad Ali a trick, and that was one that I'll never forget.
Can you show us some tricks?
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Let's do one for you. Give you an example of how I actually make a trick fit an occasion. So I even brought out a brand new deck. They're still in order here. Let me mix them up just a little bit. Actually, what I'm going to do, Ed, is I'm going to have you just say stop as I run my thumb down.
Stop.
All right, you stop me on the 7. Take a look at the next card. And are you okay with it? That an okay card?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to give you the Sharpie to personalize this. I'm going to have you write Ed on the face of the card. The face of the card is where the value
That's the
exists.
face?
Yeah.
Where the value is, yeah. You sign the other side, it's too easy for me. Yeah, it's a push button. I had already pushed it.
Yeah, I told you I'm dysfunctional.
Okay, did you show them the card?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you show the camera too?
Where is the camera?
All right. All righty.
Okay.
Now I'm going to shuffle till you say stop.
Stop.
All right, we'll place it right here.
Okay.
Now, nothing tricky, no fancy moves. The card can't be on the top, can't be on the bottom, somewhere in the middle. Easiest way to find it is to turn the deck this way, look for the signature. Not very magical. So I go this way. All right. Now, would it be fair to say that we are on SPNN, St. Paul Neighborhood Network? Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny because when you think about that, it's a visual medium. And when you talk about visual mediums, funny things can happen. So we now have SPNN here. But you'd have remembered if you'd have picked that one, correct?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I just don't know. Let's see what we've got. I've got an ace of clubs with the name Ed on it.
I feel like Muhammad Ali.
Ace of clubs with an- Now, the trick has a second part. Open your hand flat. I place your card right in the palm of your hand so it cannot go anywhere. I now go like this until you say stop.
Stop.
See this one?
Yeah.
All right. So it's always nice if you can have a 1-2 punch with these things. So no pun intended on Muhammad Ali, but 1, 2. I don't explain why or how, but it is kind of wild how a card that you just looked at can now
amazing.
morph itself
That's
back
absolutely amazing.
over into the hand.
I think Houdini is
You're
sitting up, taking notes.
Well,
Spinning in his grave.
Yeah.
interestingly enough, there is sometimes just for fun, I don't know, I try something like this. Okay, so your name is on the card, and because we are a visual medium, if I took the name Ed and go like this, like this, like this, and then hand you the card, did anything happen? Oh my.
I'm even better looking. I love it. Oh.
That is magic.
Yeah, anybody want to date me now? That is
So,
incredible.
One of the ways I customize my performances is the client will give me names of people in the group, and then unbeknownst to them, I'll put their photos on cards, and they show up during the show, and everybody goes bonkers. And I even have big cards where big pictures will show up sometimes, and so it's a lot of work on my part, but I think the payoff is in the personalization. And when there's personalization, I think the audience, if they experience something that's made for them, it reflects well on whoever organized the event, because it means that they matter, that they brought someone in who can make this a real unique, personalized experience. And that's what motivates me.
I watched you in a corporate meeting where you had somebody write his initials on a $100 bill, and your
Right.
trick was absolutely amazing, like this one. And you worked all the themes of the corporation into it and your personal relationships with people.
Well, the quick story on that, and I've done it hundreds of times, but I was doing a 3M event, and it was an International Quality Achievement Awards dinner, people from all over the world. The CEO at the time was named Desi Desimoni. Desi was on stage with me, and I had borrowed his $100 bill. Now, he signs his name on the 100. We go through this little routine where a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and the next thing you know, envelopes are burning. And as the flames are going up, I look at him and I say, "How you feeling right about now, Desi?" And he looks at me and he says, "Hondo about to become Toyota." That was a clever line. All was well at the end of the trick, you know, but it was one I'll never forget.
Wow.
So why
Yes.
do you have those coins there?
Oh, so there's a story. Back in '92, I met McLean Stevenson at a charity event, and he was the guy from MASH.
Yes.
And he got talking to me. He said, "You ever been on The Tonight Show?" And I said, "No, I'd love to, because I love Johnny Carson." He says, "My wife books talent for Johnny Carson, Ginny." He says, "Send her your info." So this is before the internet. This is before, you know, you had DVDs. You had to get a VHS tape. So I went home and I had a crude editing system, and the perfectionist in me wanted to put a good, impressive kit together. Well, this was Johnny's last year, and he only had a couple months left. And by the time I got it to them, she got back to me saying, "Hey, your stuff looks great, but it didn't quite get to us in time, and we booked another guy from Pittsburgh, so we can't have two of you." So that was that story. And so anyway, this is the trick I was going to do on The Tonight Show, so I call it the Johnny Carson trick. But we fast forward. Jimmy Fallon is now the host of The Tonight Show, and I found out he has his own brand of playing cards, and the Super Bowl was just here, and he did his show at the Super Bowl. So I thought, well, what if I could come up with a trick that would lend itself to that? So here's what I came up with. You've got the 4 aces, and now the ace of spades is the most compelling because it's got the extra ink on it. So a lot of people think, well, it's a little heavier. But if I twist my wrist like this and do a little bit of a shake, see how the ace of clubs just tipped over on? You didn't see it tip, did you? Let me do it again. I put it back, shake once, that straightens that out, shake again, that causes a red one to flip. Let's see. Yep, the diamond.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sitting here and I can't see it happen, but one thing I did discover about the ace of spades is it has that magnetic quality where just by shaking this way, it can cause all the other aces to flip right back over, just like so. Now, if I was to put the ace of spades here, and Midge, could you put your finger on it so it can't go anywhere? If that's the ace of spades, that should leave me with a heart, a club, and a diamond. Wouldn't it be amazing if I could make the ace of spades disappear while it's under your finger?
Yes.
Do you believe that it's gone, or would you say it's not gone?
Knowing you, it's probably gone.
You're right, look. It turned into a Super Bowl card, see? Turned into a Super
Of course it
Bowl
would.
card. And guess what? The ace came back. So people say, well, that's pretty cool, but what's that got to do with the Tonight Show? Well, here's what it has. I grew up watching this guy.
Oh, my goodness.
There's Johnny. And who came after Johnny was Jay, but now it's Jimmy.
Wow.
So that's the Super Bowl trick I put together. Now, let me show you the Johnny Carson trick, the 4 coins. So we cover up, we'll put one here, we'll put one here, we'll put one here, and we'll use the Super Bowl card over here. Okay, so watch closely. We've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. If I cover the coins one at a time like this, okay, now you're sitting here, there's no tricky moves, no fancy doors or trap mirrors or wires or anything like that. Watch. SPNN, bringing the community together. There's the first one. Let's try that again. There's the second one. Sometimes in life we have obstacles. There's an old saying, obstacles are things you see when you take your eye off of the goal. So I'm looking here. It worked.
Oh.
So that leaves me with the Tonight Show goes here and Jay goes there. I take the last coin over here. I just pick it up like this, shake it a little bit,
Oh, it's not there.
and it's gone, and you can do the honors.
Wow.
Go ahead, you do the honors. Ta-da!
Well, we only have about a minute and a half left. This has been absolutely amazing. I feel like I've been on the Johnny Carson show.
Well, the one thing I forgot to tell you, they say, can you teach a trick? Well, I used an extra coin. Did you see it? Yeah, it's
Didn't
kind
even
of no,
catch
it's
it.
kind of a big one. I'm surprised you missed it. It's kind of a big coin. A lot of people don't see this stuff, so I got one more for you here. So there's the.
Anything you want to say as a conclusion, or do?
It's just been a wonderful time to be here. The time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it?
It does.
And I would just encourage people out there watching to, if you have a hobby or an interest, pursue it. You can go online now and learn magic tricks on YouTube. One of these days I'm going to put my own show together, maybe gear it towards seniors, because I think the most important thing as we age, and I'm on Medicare now, the most important thing as we age is keep this good, keep this healthy, and so learning new things can be good for you, and it kills boredom, and it gives you, you learn a couple of tricks, you can pop something on somebody, you can have a little fun with
Can
somebody.
you make us disappear?
Can I make you guys disappear? Watch this. On 3, 1, 2, 3, the Amazing Hondo, you are now gone. Voila. They're gone.